Welcome back to another episode of your midweek tips and tricks from Nelson Creek Farm. I'm Farmer Dave, and today we're going to be talking about string trimmers. Yes, we are. So stay tuned for a few tips and tricks on how to make these things work better. I don't know if you can see them with the GoPro, but there is several A10 warthogs flying over the farm today. This makes the second pair. Yeah, now you can hear them, may not be able to see them. Must be Air Force Day. Now we got a KC-135 fuel tanker flying over the house, aka a 707. So what I'm referring to today are string trimmers, either handheld such as this one that's either battery powered or plug-in electric or a walk behind. The Weed Eater brand name that everybody's familiar with is just that, it's a brand name. But technically, even the Weed Eater brand is a string line trimmer just like these. So let's dive into it today and I'll show you just a real quick tip and some tricks on how these things work. This is the mower head of a string trimmer, and this is the string. It happens to be blue on this particular unit. And that is what actually does the cutting, as this spins around at a high speed that's either powered by a gas motor or by an electric one, like in the head of that unit. This string is what does the cutting. Now there's several things we need to know about that string. Now you just can't go and buy any string that's cheap and run in one of these things. Depending on what size the motor is, how much power it puts out, it's going to depend on how big the string is. And of course, in these little electrics, you go from a real small string that's about the size of a pencil lead. I don't know if you can spot it there or not, but yeah, up against my finger, about the size of a pencil lead, to something in like one of these little handheld jobs, all the way up to stuff that's every bit of an eighth of an inch or bigger in diameter in one of these walk behinds. Yeah. So the diameter is very important. So you really need to pay attention to the owner's manual or the label on the box or a label on the machine to tell you what size of the filament that you need, which this is what this is, the string is called a filament. You need to know what size that filament is. If you have the wrong size on one of these with the tap and go deal where it feeds out string when you tap it, it may not come unwound out of that spool that's inside of this cover. It may stay stuck in there. Now speaking of stuck, sometimes you will notice the string or the filament being stuck to itself. Well, there's a reason why that is, and I'm going to tell you that one right now. Now this is a tube of the string that goes with this walk behind trimmer. If you notice there's moisture dripping out of it, and I'll tell you about that here in a minute because that's got something to do with the string sticking to itself or the filament. This particular machine calls for a 0.155 diameter, which is 3.93 millimeter. And that's what the machine calls for. Now that's also the sizes you got to watch for your handheld battery powered and plug-in electric. The length here, where it shows you 18.5 inches in pre-cut length, that doesn't really matter on one of the little handheld jobs because you put a whole spool of filament on there and it cuts it off to the desired length as it feeds out. But what's important here is the size. Now, I mentioned a minute ago about the strings sticking to themselves, and if you notice, there's moisture in this tube. See that? Yeah. Okay, so what the deal is up inside of here, if I can get it to come out, is a sponge. That little bit of a sponge, there's water in that, and that water keeps the strings moist. Now, there's a trick and a reason behind that. I don't know what the chemical compound of these is, and it's all over the internet, so I'm not the first one to come up with this idea. But if you keep these things in a humid area, they don't tend to stick to each other. Don't know why, but that's what they say. Another thing that they do is that they last longer. They don't break off as fast as you've probably noticed if you've used a string trimmer and you seem to be seeing little chunks of string flying every which way. Yeah, they break off easy. But if you keep them moist, they don't tend to break as easily. That's why there's a little sponge in some of these cases or containers of string. It's to keep them moist. If you don't have a sponge like they do in this particular tube to keep your filaments moist, to keep them from sticking together and to make them more pliable so they don't break and they last longer, and all you have is a big master spool that you have to wind your filament around the little output or feed spool on your handheld, what you can do is take that entire filament roll and put it in a pan or a sink or something with some temperate water and let it sit for 24 hours. Especially true if your string starts sticking to itself. Yeah, if you get it in one of those little tightly wound spools and it won't feed out, it's probably stuck to itself. And if it is, soak that spool in some water for 24 hours. See if that doesn't help. Now, why that's a thing, I don't know, because I don't actually know what the chemical composition is of the filament that is used in string line trimmers. Although I have been told it is somewhat biodegradable, and some of them are even made out of an organic compound. But I don't know if it works on all of them, but do try it. Get them wet, soak them, or keep them humid for a while, and see if that doesn't help make these last longer in your trimmer. Another really good idea this time of year is to get you a little 2 or 2.5 gallon fuel can like this one to keep your fuel tanks full in your lawn equipment, whether it be a chainsaw, gas powered walk behind like this one, or even a gas powered handheld string trimmer. Yeah, see if you can find one of these little 2.5 gallon gas cans. Now there's a very good and excellent reason why you want one of these small little gas cans. What you need to do is before you start running your last 2 or 3 tankfuls of fuel through whatever your contraption might be, whether it's a string trimmer, lawnmower, walk behind string trimmer, chainsaw, whatever, the last 2 or 3 tankfuls you run through that thing, dump your gas out of one of these and find you a gas station or an oil company that's near your location that sells non-ethanol blended fuel. You can find it. It does cost a little bit more, but you want to run non-ethanol blended fuel through those little engines and have all the ethanol fuel out of them before you leave them sit for the winter. Even if you run them dry, run some non-ethanol gas through those engines. The reason why I say see if you can find a station or an oil company that sells non-ethanol blended fuel near you is because alcohol and water mix. Yeah, they do. Just like in a drink at a bar or something, a lot of times they'll ask, or the bartender will water down your drink. The alcohol will mix with water. Now, it's not the alcohol that causes issues with the small motors, because there's enough gas left in the system to keep everything lubed up and ready to go. But what dries out all the little rubber diaphragms, the O-rings and all that type of thing is a reaction, a chemical reaction between the gasoline and the water that causes that issue of having stuff that's gummed up, plugged up, and otherwise ruined, where you have to take stuff to a repair shop to get it fixed or parts replaced so your equipment will run properly. It's not necessarily the alcohol's fault or the ethanol. It's still an alcohol. It is a chemical reaction, and don't let anybody tell you any different. I know, because I worked 16 years in the lubricants and oil and petroleum industry, so I've seen it. And when they tell you there's water in diesel, it's how they get the sulfur out of diesel fuel to make it ultra low sulfur. But anyway, find you some non-ethanol gas at a pump. And another trick to remember, you're going to have at least 2.5 gallons of whatever type of fuel and whatever octane of fuel in the hose and in the pump and filters assembly after whoever was ahead of you filled up last. So if you want to make sure you get some non-ethanol gas, have your car running about half a tank or so to go when you go fill up your little can. Dump 3 gallons of non-ethanol fuel out of that hose or out of that pump into your car, into the gas tank, car, pickup, whatever, or even another one of these jugs to run in something else, just to make sure that pumps lines are clear so you get your non-ethanol gas. At least that's what I do when I'm getting the non-ethanol fuel. I'll take either another red gas can with me or just dump 2 to 3 gallons of the non-ethanol gas, whatever comes out of that hose first, into another tank and then concentrate on filling my little red can with straight non-ethanol fuel. And this is only particularly true on pumps that are split between several different fuels. Okay, if they have, say, 2 or 3 different ethanol octane rated fuels coming out of the same hose and the same pump as the non-ethanol, yeah, run that other stuff out of your system before you get a can full of non-ethanol gas by putting that 2 to 3 gallons in another tank and burning it up. Now, if you want to run non-ethanol fuel in one of your powered equipment all summer, all season, whatever you have, yeah, it won't hurt it a bit, especially if it's got a little higher octane rating to it. And yeah, there's less man-made chemicals in that non-ethanol gas. Should you have any questions on today's topic, please leave a comment down here in the comment section down below the screen here. I'll get to them as quick as I can and give you the best answer that I know of to give to you about the topic. Yeah, so any other questions, comments, thoughts? I'm always glad to hear them, especially if suggestions on a little tip or trick to do the next video on. So yeah, I'm always open to suggestions on that. In the meantime, if you would, please click on that subscribe button down there. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we're gaining on it ever so slowly. But for now, I'm Farmer Dave wishing you well, and y'all behave and have a good one out there. Bye-bye for now.